This was a couple of years ago, but I always think what could have happened if me and my friend hadn't found a way to escape. I just turned 21 and was with one of my older girlfriends, browsing online for bars near each other so that we could bar hop and celebrate the occasion. However, I grew up in a pretty desolate town in Maryland where bars were really far and few between. Me and my friend decided it would be a good idea to take a trip to Baltimore for the night and feel out the city. We didn't really plan on which bars we were going to, or really where we were going to stay at night. Nonetheless, our spontaneity drove us 2 hours to the Grand City, where we were walking the streets alone looking for a hip bar to get toasted at. As we were walking, I started to notice that a lot of the shops and stores were closed around us. I put specific names of clubs and bars into my GPS, but each time we got to where the GPS led us, the venue was run down or non-existent. What made it worse was that we were already pre-gamed while we were walking around the city, so we were losing sight of where our car was parked. Up ahead, I see a man standing outside one of the buildings ahead. I look behind me and see that there was no one else roaming the streets with us. It was just two girls and this strange man on the corner. There wasn't even any flow of traffic passing through. Already, my stomach was starting to tie in a knot. As soon as we passed him, he asked where we were headed to dressed the way we were. I whispered to my friend to just ignore him and keep walking, but she replied saying that we were looking for a bar. That sparked his interest as he began to walk behind us, asking where the bar was that we were heading to. Of course we didn't know, and of course we didn't want him to know that. He kept going on and on with a series of questions. Where are you from? You're not from here, are you? Where's the bar you're headed to? What's your name? And I started to think that this man wanted to take advantage of us in some way. He then started asking us for cigarettes, which my friend gave him, but he kept asking over and over. He started walking beside us at that point, then walked right in front of us and turned to us. Right next to us was a red light that I saw a police officer stop at. While this guy was asking my friend more and more questions, I leaned over to the side and made eye contact with the officer and waved my hand at him to come over. The man who was pestering us noticed I was doing this and walked over to the police officer. At this point, I was starting to get pretty scared and asked my friend to just start walking away. I looked behind me and saw the man pointing at us and laughing with the police officer. The cop pulled away, and this man started taking long, fast strides right back up behind us. I assumed that he told the officer he was with us, so there was no threat. I tried to tell him to go away, that he already has his cigarettes and we have nothing for him. I started to think that if we were in an area with more people that he would leave us alone, although there was nothing really around us that would warrant people would be hanging out at. I then see a McDonald's and think, they're usually open 24/7 and someone has to be inside. We walked up to the McDonald's and tried to open the door, but it's locked. Sure enough, he is right in front of us breathing this foul, rotten stench over us. I thought, this is it. I'm going to have to find something as a weapon, and I reached down towards my heel. He put his arms on both sides of us, leaning into us, when suddenly I see to my left some Christmas lights hanging from a bar behind the McDonald's. I screamed, "Let's go!" and pulled onto my friend's hand to run towards this bar. Inside, we watched him pace back and forth waiting for us to come out. He was out there until the bar closed. We asked a gentleman at the bar to walk us to his car, and the man who was following us simply walked away into an alley. To me, back then, as a 21-year-old female, I felt so creeped out and totally sure that this man was going to rob us or even cause harm to us. I was about 13 when this happened, so I might not recall all the details. It was around 2:30 when me and my friend decided to sneak out during our slumber party. My friend Cassie wanted to go to the corner store. Why? I'm still not quite sure myself. Anyway, we climbed out the window and made our way down the dimly lit street. Nothing was out of the ordinary. That was, until I heard footsteps behind me and Cassie. I tried to remain calm and not draw any attention. We were getting closer to the store when I heard the man getting a little closer. I couldn't see his face, but out of the corner of my eye I could see he was wearing a dark hoodie, some jeans, and worn-out sneakers. Cassie noticed him too, and I quietly told her to not be suspicious. We made it in the empty store. I started to browse the snack aisle when I heard the bell ring from the door. It was him, sure enough. He kept his head low and watched as we picked out our snacks. I had this gut-wrenching feeling that something was really off about this man. There were so many red flags I could make a parachute with them. Me and Cassie went to the front desk and told the owner. He assured us everything was fine and that we should just get home. The nerve of this guy, I thought as we took our items and headed for the door. I hated the fact that we were on a dark street with a creepy man following closely behind. Only one more block, I told myself, still occasionally glancing behind us. I thought we had lost him when I heard Cassie yell, "Run!" I didn't even hesitate. I dropped the bags and began to run faster than I ever have in my entire life. I quickly looked back to see the man running after us at full speed, clenching a knife in his hands, and kept looking forward, but it was too late for that. I could see the light of Cassie's bedroom window. I knew we were going to be okay at that moment. Relief washed over me as I climbed back in through the window. It was safe to say that we never snuck out after that. As for that creepy-ass man, let's never meet again. This story happened a year ago, when I was 15 and on a school trip in San Francisco. I attribute this story to me growing up and realizing how the world really worked. I was rooming with two other girls in my room, both who were a year older than me, so I really didn't know them well. The way our trip worked, so to say, was that breakfast in the hotel was between 7 to 8, but the chaperones on the trip wouldn't wake us, so we wanted to have time to get ready and eat before we left to explore the city for the day. We had to do it on our own. This meant that in the morning, me and the people in my room didn't see the chaperones till we all went down for breakfast. Usually around 7:45 since we all took a long time to get ready. However, this day was different. We were tired from arriving late and having to eat quickly, so we woke up a bit earlier to go down for breakfast right when it opened. We ate breakfast with pretty much the rest of the kids on my trip, and all headed to the elevator together. This was a mix of boys and girls on this trip, and my twin brother also happened to be on the trip, so the people in the elevator was him and his friends, me, the girls from my room, and a few of their friends. The elevator door was almost closed when two Indian men stuck their hand through the door and stepped inside, squeezing themselves into an already packed elevator. They looked young, maybe 19 or 20. Eventually we arrived at our floor and all got off. So did the men. The way the hotel rooms and hallways were situated was essentially just a square. You could go any way around the floor and eventually make it back to the elevator if you turned left or right 3 times. The people on my trip went right and the men went left. Eventually my brother and his friends trickled off into their rooms, and it was just me and one of the girls on my trip. We were right near our rooms when we encountered the men again. At first, we didn't notice anything wrong. They were probably just trying to find their room. I turned away from them and tried to find my room key in my wallet. Now, at this point, my immature brain didn't notice anything wrong, but my roommate did. I could see the panic in her eyes, and as I turned to look at the men, I realized they weren't looking for a room. They were looking for us. My heart began to race, and we panicked, each fumbling for our room cards to get into our room as quick as possible. But they were moving towards us too quickly. We were standing there, pressed against our door, as these two men stepped closer to us and got within a half a foot of our faces. Their English wasn't the best, so they slowly asked us what we were doing. I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to do in this situation, so my roommate spoke up. She tried her best to not let them know that this was our room, but it was obvious at this point. She stuttered something about trying to get into a friend's room, but these men clearly weren't there to know what we were doing. I could tell they were there for something more sinister. One of the men continued to stare at me and eye me up and down while the other got really close to my roommate and asked for her number. She stood up taller and quickly said, "No, I'm sorry, you can't," but her voice trailed off as her confidence wore off. At last, I spoke, explaining to them that we were underage and that we were on a school trip, that we couldn't. They didn't take no for an answer. At that point, I slowly started to pull my room key from my wallet. Luckily, my friend pushed the card back into my wallet and made me push my hand holding my wallet behind my back. At the time, I was confused why she didn't let us go into our room, but now I realized she had more intuition about these men than I did. She knew that if we opened our room door with them right there, they'd likely force themselves in there with us, and who knows what would happen. Eventually, they backed off enough where we felt we could escape from them. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me along the hallways as we sprinted towards the elevator. Along the way, we ran into my brother and one of his friends. We quickly explained to them what happened, and they sprinted with us to the elevators. Once we were there, quickly pressing the elevator buttons to get downstairs where our chaperones were, we encountered the men again. I clutched onto my brother's arm, and my roommate did the same with my brother's friend's arm. They just stood on the other side of the hallway, staring at us, and quickly walking towards us. It looked like they were pretending to be just normal hotel patrons in front of the boys, but we knew they weren't just normal patrons. They were creepy and weren't risking it. Finally, the elevator opened, and I don't think I've ever clicked the closed door button so fast. Right as the men got to the elevators, the door closed. Thank God, we thought. Our ordeal was over. But it wasn't. There were multiple elevators in the hotel. My brother, his friend, my roommate, and me had just gotten to the breakfast hall, where most of our group chaperones were, when we realized the men were there too. They had followed us. They started off staying across the room from us, but we were getting closer. We left the room and went back up to our rooms. Once there, my roommate and I were panicking. They knew where our room was. They knew our floor. They could find us at any time, and we didn't know what they would do. Our panic was cut short when the phone in our room rang. At this hotel, you can call other people's rooms, and we thought it was from one of the boys' rooms playing a joke on us. We were wrong. When we picked up the phone, it was just heavy breathing and quiet laughing. We hung up after about 20 seconds. I called my brother and his friend and asked them to meet us outside our room. They walked us to the elevators and back downstairs. On the way, we told them about the phone call. My brother's friend took responsibility for it. My roommate believed him, but I didn't. I knew they wouldn't freak us out like that. They were just trying to calm us down. Once downstairs again, still shaking, we told one of our chaperones about the two men, and they freaked out. We told the front desk about the men, but since we didn't know what room they were in or their names, they told us they couldn't do anything about it. They tried to reassure us that there was a group staying there that they probably broke a part of, and they were probably leaving in a few days. It didn't calm us down, though. Thankfully, we never saw them again, and I never want to. So, creepy men in the hotel? Let's not meet again.